See live stream. Yes, I know our amazing community who's looking forward to every Wednesday where they get an opportunity to hear from amazing speakers, but also I would say amazing leaders, amazing purpose-driven leaders who really want to impact not only for themselves but also for the community. So we've got a similar and amazing purpose-driven leader today, but more on that shortly. But I just want to thank you, first of all, for being part of our Legacy X Performing Leadership, where we did amazing conversations last week with a divorce lawyer, with Joyce Koo, about relationships, about how much we have to invest into our relationship, and especially with from a in-laws perspective, with our spouses and communication. So it was just amazing where we're not only building up high performing leadership for our business or for our employment, for our career, but also in our families. So we have in our global networking and connection. So it's great to see people connecting with each other, and especially even from international as well. We've got many of our members joining international as well. So that's just amazing. And just letting you know, team, we're going to be kicking off a 30-day Put Your Dream to the Test challenge starting tomorrow, the 1st of May. So I've been running Put Your Dream to the Test with my leadership roundtable. So we've been going through the ownership question, we've been going through the clarity, the reality question, the passion, the people, the cost, tenacity, fulfillment, the significant questions. So all those 10 questions, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be running the entire month of May. We're going to run through it and ensure that every day, that whatever dream you have, it could be a career promotion, it could be a business, it could be a family trip. So whatever goal, whatever dream you have, we're going to be putting to the test every day. So I'm going to be releasing single everyday nuggets, and you guys are going to be working through, sharing on social media, sharing on Facebook, so that we ensure we pull up and we give the hand to the person as well, and especially to this community as well. So that's what we be doing, and I just wanted to share that as a family, as a team, that we'll be going to be doing it together. And today I have the opportunity to have Claire Merrick, so who's a fellow John Maxwell certified team leader, team member, who's the CEO and founder of the Growth Co. And she's right. So her passion lies in unlocking personal growth and values based leadership. So through the Growth Co, she empowers executives and team leaders with the mindset, skill set, and tool set to unlock their potential, and in turn, the potential of those they lead as well. So she's known for her authenticity and also her humor and her heart. So Claire brings a lot of powerful insights to every conversation with a fun, engaging style that leaves a lasting impact. So, all my amazing legacy, let's give a virtual round of applause and a welcome to Claire. Welcome, Claire.
Thank you, Joby. That's a, a very great introduction. So thank you so much. It is my absolute honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me into this space and giving me an opportunity for us to have, I guess, today a little bit of a fireside chat around the importance of identity and our core values. So I'd love I'd love for us and for the audience to think about what it is that people will remember about you when you're not in the room. So if you're not in the room and perhaps your name comes up in conversation, what is it that people will remember about you? Or even when we're not here, every day we make decisions, what we say yes to, what we say no to, how we spread our time. And the question is, are we doing that with intentionality, or are we doing that as a result of being reactive or under pressure? This isn't just about end of life or when you're not in the room. It's about everyday intention and how that actually builds our legacy. So if we're thinking about the legacy that we want to leave as leaders and as people, what does that actually look like? So when I think about the topic of identity, the question that comes to mind is, who are you? And what would your answer be to that? Is it where you come from? Is it your background? Is it what you've done? Because we've never really been given the opportunity to answer that question, or to have somebody invite us into that space and say, what actually really matters to you? Not because of something that you've got caught up in by mistake or by accident, or the busyness of life that we get caught up in, but what actually really matters to you. And are you able to hone that down to maybe 3, 4, or 5 core values? And the way that I would think about core values is they're our true north. So if you think about the comparison between a compass or a weather vane, for example, a compass is always pointing at true north, regardless of what is going on around it, north is always true. Whereas a weather vane is impacted by the weather that's going on around it and the external circumstances, and it's going to spin around and change direction. So east or west could be any direction depending on how the weather vane is looking. So when we think about our own lives, are we making decisions as people and as leaders, whether that's in our community, our organizations, within our family, company, in my own life, and do those things line up? And you kind of know when something is out of alignment because it feels hard, right? Harder than it needs to be. Whereas when you are really in alignment with your true identity and your core values, you know those sweet spots where things are more in flow, things feel uplifting and encouraging, and you actually come away feeling energized. So, some of the things that I think about when you to encourage you with your core values and how you actually identify those, if perhaps you haven't had the opportunity to do that, is where is something in your world that you know that you would do for free, or something in your world that you know that when you're immersed in that space, nobody has to remind you to do it, or time flies by really quickly. um, and where you spend your time, where you spend your talent, and where you spend your treasure, or thinking about a time even where something has perhaps irritated you or annoyed you, that can give you a real clue as to what it is that you really truly value and what you respond to. And those things in our world actually give us some clues about what that actually looks like. So, again, when we want to lead with clarity, it's understanding ourselves and who and what matters to us most. So without clarity and values, it's again easily swayed. We can be easily swayed by pressure. Whereas we want to be able to lead with clarity and conviction and not confusion. So there is again an opportunity. I invite you, perhaps after this workshop, and again, Joby, if it's helpful for the members, I'm more than happy to pop just a short exercise into the group, like with a PDF, to just go through the values exercise, if it's not something that people have done before, to be able to really hone in on what those the answer to those questions. And then it actually helps us get really clear on how we make our decisions, yes and no. There's no conflict or when you put those decisions up against who you really are as a person and what those values are, the decisions become easier and there's less to think about, which is also something that we're looking towards. And again, with all of this, I'm really mindful, and Joby and I were chatting before, how none of this has to be perfect. So we're all a work in progress with these things. And also, core values can change depending on our season of life. They're not so concrete or set in stone. There is a version of us that can show up when our values are different. Perhaps if our family circumstances change, or we move to a different geographical location, or our business goes in a different direction, whatever that looks like, the core values change, and that's okay too. And then it's really important to remember that those values serve you for the person that you are in this moment, in this season in time, that it's not locked into, oh, well, my values have changed and that doesn't look like the person that I used to be. And also on that, we don't have to compare our values to other people. Something I have actually struggled with, truthfully, when I've had to lock in my core values, is thinking about the ones that I should have. Like, how should I show up in my core values? Like, should they be the ones that we think are the most respectable or noble? But our values are the ones that are the things that are important to us. And again, it's really important to get clear on that. So when you think about leaving a legacy, you already are leaving a legacy. It's just determining whether it's the one that you actually want to be remembered for at the end of the day.
Well,
That's what I've got.
no, that's amazing, Claire, because when you were going through, yes, I've personally done the values card and I've done it for my team, part of the leadership. My values that I never compromise, and my team knows that, is faith, family, freedom. So it's all the three F's. And so if anything gets compromised with my freedom, with my time freedom, but with my financial freedom, so then it kind of it borders on the area for Joby, right? And similar goes for the faith as well. So hence the reason why I work, and I am who I am with legacy as well. It's always about the spiritual, I would say, the anchor that we need, and definitely with the family as well. So no, that's amazing, Claire, that you share that. And if you don't mind, I've got some questions that I would love for our listeners to actually be part of as well. So
External pressure? Is it to try to please everybody? I used to be that person. I'm still learning to not be a people pleaser. And sometimes actually that requires the hard decisions, right? So we need to have something concrete in our own mind to lean on, because sometimes the decisions we have to make are challenging. And if we haven't got something that we are certain that we're making those decisions in line with, then that becomes even more difficult to do. So when you know who you are, what your values are, what you stand for, everything that comes as far as decision making lines up really clearly and really easily with those things. Sometimes those decisions can still be challenging to make based on your values, but again, it's knowing that you're secure in your decisions even when they might be challenging.
Absolutely right. So it's always about that core, that you go back to your core values, and that's what kind of steers you and guides you through that. So that's amazing that you share, Claire. Because you know how can someone reconnect with their core values even if they're feeling unclear or lost? And because you did mention that, so how do they actually tap into that core values, especially in challenging or when they seem they're lost and unclear?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's taking some time to pause and reflect. Actually, taking some time out to really sit with this, and think about what really is important to you. Perhaps an area of perhaps an example is an area of your life where you know you've had to compromise and that hasn't felt good, or you've had to make a hard decision between, say, family and another commitment, and that has resulted in you feeling a little off sometimes. It's hard, it's sometimes hard to describe, but it's an instinct that we kind of just know within ourselves. Again, when we're slightly out of alignment, it can cause sleepless nights, it can be distressing. But if you really sit down and go, okay, where have there been stresses in my life that I would rather minimize and cut off and say no to, versus the things that I know that are in line with my strengths, with my talents, with my passions. Um, Again, with the things that light us up and really make a difference to us, and sometimes even the things that make us angry, that gives us a really good clue about what we care about.
Yeah.
Um, and again, thinking about where we spend our time, our talent, and our treasure is will often give us clues as to what we really value. So sometimes it's about just sitting down, taking 15, 20 minutes, and sometimes more than once, to really look at what those things are. And having a core values exercise with a list of the values in a line along with that can be really helpful. So you can have a list of the words, and again, for the sake of time, I can
Mm.
show you the PDF and show you how to do the actual activity itself.
No, that's amazing, right? So when you have that values reset, so I think that's quite important. So now let's move on to those courageous choices, and maybe you did share some personal stories, Claire. So if you can share a time when living by your values led to a tough decision, but ultimately the right one?
Yeah. Okay. So, well, it's interesting because as I said, I'm going through something in real time. So, I I have volunteered in a space recently, and I am now starting to reflect upon, firstly, why I made the decision to volunteer in that space, whether
Mm,
it was something that I felt was perhaps noble. So the
yeah.
truth is that I'm starting to question my own motives behind it. Was it something that I thought that was just good to do, or I've seen other people doing and they're being rewarded for being in that space? And I think, particularly from a values perspective of who I'm called to serve,
Mm,
that we can't actually serve everybody. So wherever there is a need, my heart, I suppose, in the past has always been to help wherever I can and be of service. And I just want to help everybody. And the reality is that we can't. So I'm currently coming up against my own lived out experience to go, okay, this is perhaps not lining up. And so, what is not working out here? Is this particular demographic that I'm volunteering in perhaps not my speciality or not um, my lane? So I'm thinking about, what does that actually look like? What am I called to do? Also, as a person of faith. So for me, that looks like, am I doing this out of my own will? Or is this actually God's will for my life? And really, because faith is also important to me, and I have been really digging down on my own values, the word sovereignty has actually come up for me, and faith comes under that. And are the decisions I'm making lining up with those things? And I think now the courageous part of that will come probably in the next couple of days as I'm having meetings with people involved in this situation, and what that looks like moving forward. Um, Whether I need to step out completely, because I know that's ultimately the best thing to do for me and the people that I serve, to be honouring of that space, or whether we redraw the boundary lines, because boundaries are coming into the situation as well, and how that actually lines up. And then from, I think sometimes the decisions require courage, but I think the ultimate outcome is when you feel peaceful about it. So it might feel difficult in the situation, but once
mm,
you've made the decision and come through the other side, I think
yeah.
that sense of peace is actually what gives you the indication that you've made the right choice.
Yeah, no, I think that's an amazing example, a real life case study, Claire, of actually us navigating through that. I would say those courageous choices. So thanks, Claire, for sharing. So next, let's move to, I would say, pressure versus conviction. So, what are some signs someone might be making decisions from external pressure rather than internal conviction?
Well, that's a good question. Again, I would say probably my first measuring stick would be the sense of peace. Um, really thinking about, like, does it give you a sense of peace, knowing again whether it lines up with your core values, or are you doing it because you may not want to upset somebody, or you may not want somebody to think a certain way about you? I think um, some of my challenges in the past have I've made decisions based on worrying about what people think about me. Which, if we go through our lives worrying about what everybody thinks about us, then you're always going to feel scattered or external pressure, because we know we can't please everybody. So at what point are you compromising yourself and your own decisions just to make everybody else happy? I think if we're talking about values-based leadership, and we know obviously John Maxwell says that we are people of value first. So we are people of value who value others and add value to them. But I think sometimes we forget, in a world of service, that we are valuable too. And so if we're under pressure of trying to keep everybody else happy, but we're either getting unwell or losing ourselves in the process, And we all know what that looks like, right? We know when people, well, I think about, again, it's not what we do, the one big thing every now and again, the big leaps, but we shape our character and our destiny on the things that we do daily. It's like it's not the one and done situation that then is who we become. We are always in a process of becoming, and it's the choices we make on a daily basis that eventually lead to the big things and lead to the biggest outcome. So I'm about to embark on an exercise that is actually writing my own eulogy, which might sound a little morbid, but it is with the intention of, if people were to stand up at my memorial service, what would I hope they would say about me? And if that's the case at the end of my life, what do I need to do, or who do I need to become, more importantly, in order to grow into being that person and the legacy that I want to leave? And then breaking it down, almost working backwards from that point and saying, okay, this is the legacy. This is ultimately what I want to be remembered for. How do I show up every day with the decisions that I make towards that being the legacy that I leave behind? And hopefully, with some kind of impact, and that something that I can pass on to others. It's obviously not just about me, but who we impact and how we pass that baton on to others. But if we don't really have a clear idea of where we're going, um, the decisions we make will just be more by accident rather than intention. So having that awareness and then bringing those little daily consistent habits into it ultimately leads to the big picture down the track.
Yeah, no, that was very deep, very quickly, but I love it, and I think that's an amazing, I would say, exercise that we all should go through and should do, and especially I always I kid, but I always tell my wife as well. So, hey Cheryl, I want my memorial service would be a celebration. I want fairy floss. I want jumping castles. I want, so that's the because I want them to celebrate, because my life has always been about having, it's all about celebration. It's all about making sure that we give our best, and especially working backwards. I think that's an amazing exercise. So thanks, Claire. I'm sure let's hold each other accountable for holding that exercise
It's
and doing.
actually part of my Beyond Success. One of our what are we going to do this week? From my one of my Beyond Success sessions, that was my promise, was to get started on this exercise of figuring out my legacy. So yeah.
That's amazing. So thanks, Claire, for sharing, and also on that, it's a healing the past, right? So what advice do you have for someone who feels past decisions have damaged their legacy?
Again, it's a big question, right? I Something I've struggled with personally. So I can speak from my own experience. Obviously, not the way that we all deal with things is different, and I think it's figuring out for yourself how you best accomplish that. But I think first and foremost, I would say don't be so hard on yourself. And when I say that out loud, I really am talking to myself at the same time. We can't change our past. We can learn from it. However, I think about with the Lion King. If anyone's ever seen the movie from the Lion King, with Rafiki, when he's talking to um, Simba, Simba makes the decision to step away from, his responsibilities as becoming king, because he feels he was obviously under the impression that he had hurt his dad. And Rafiki says to him, we are not our past, but we can learn from it. And if we're kind to ourselves in the process and find the lessons in it, giving ourselves for any decisions that have maybe been foolish, or sometimes we don't know any better. So the idea of when we know better, we can do better. And even just talking that through with people, sometimes having people who are external and who love you, who can give you a lot of encouragement, and just say, it's one of those things. If you, again, this is where our identity and our values become so important, because you leave behind the way that you don't want to be, and you keep taking steps towards the person you want to become. And we're all a work in progress. Like at every turn, we will make mistakes and we won't get things perfect. But as long as we're learning from them in the process, then that's okay. And I think that um, there's a lot to be said in that too. Part of leaving the legacy is owning your mistakes, learning from them, putting your hand up, not running away from poor decisions or pretending they didn't happen. So even all part of the process of developing our character and how we leave a good legacy.
Mm-mm. Yep, absolutely. So love that, and especially those because those past decisions. How do you actually ensure that? And I think that that framework that you shared, Claire, was really amazing. So thanks for that. And now let's move to shaping culture, right? So how can leaders build a culture of values-driven decision making, especially within their teams or families?
Well, I mean, it's really the same process. It's giving people an opportunity, depending on what organization or group of people they're in. Um, these exercises can be done individually, but then they can be done in a roundtable format, for example. So you have already identified, like you did at the start of this, we know the pillars that exist that you have set and established for this group. The ways you model that, Joby, is by communicating it each time. So where you begin your, legacy live meetings, you reinforce and remind people what those values are at the beginning. And it's a way for people to have a buy-in. So we know that when people's values are aligned, they're going to get much better results. So as an individual, once you have identified what your values are, or as a leader, what you've identified, if perhaps it's your organization that you're leading, but inviting your team in to find out what's important to them too. And I think it's a really great way then of people knowing what the values are of the organization or of the family. So everybody gets a say in the matter, because sometimes there might be discrepancies, but finding out what it is that's really important to everybody. And then those become the way that you navigate and move through decisions as a family, as a team, as an organization, again, based on those values, which become your North Star. So it is the same process, you just do it with more people. And often what we find is that if people's values aren't aligned, there's almost a natural separation. Like people will decide to it's harder in families, but still sometimes happens. But within an organization, particularly, people will, if they know what their values are and they know what the company values are, then there's an opportunity for them to align or to choose a different space that aligns. And then you build culture from that place. And we know that with culture, the idea is that this is the way we do things around here, right? So it's not a nice set of prints that someone's done on Canva with some nice words on the wall. Culture actually, you need to be able to step into an organization and have evidence of those values actually playing out. Like it needs to be something that people are living, doing, they believe in. So I think that's the difference with culture, is like,
Yeah.
are you actually living out those values, and is that evident to everybody within the organization?
Yeah, no, I love it. I love how we have to re-emphasize and kind of bring them on the journey, because definitely it's top down, right? So we need to live and breathe our values. So thank you so much, Clara. One last question. I know it's time that we wind up. So let's do the call to action. So if our listeners were to take one action today after this session, what would you want that to be, Claire?
I just think revisit your values. Take 15, 20 minutes. As I said, I'm happy to pop the exercise in so you've got something to guide if you've never done it before, or if you have used these in the past, or even if you have your values already established. Take 10, 15 minutes in your own time just to sit and reflect and review them and say, yep, I'm still on track. My values haven't changed. They're the core of who I am, and every decision is aligned against it. Or if you've never done it before, now is a great opportunity to really sit down and look at what those top 3, 5, 7, doesn't really matter, But often 3 to 5 is where we get the most powerful outcomes. Yeah, not to confuse the issue. So simple as that, 10, 15 minutes, work through your values, decide what those core values are, and then start to align decision making in accordance with them.
Yep. So there you go. The work is cut out for us for our Legacy X community. So Claire, thank you so much for your time, for sharing your heart, and especially that teaching us or sharing how our identity and values shape every decision that we make, and also shaping culture, not only in and yeah, look forward. You're part of our family, you're part of our tribe, so please feel free to share it below the link, and also I'll share it in the guide section. So anyone who wants to go, please, if you're watching it on replay, hashtag replay. We'd love to see, and also one key takeaway, right? So from all that Claire shared and poured out her heart as well. So thank you so much, Claire. Really appreciate your time and for being part of our family.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.